Welcome, everyone, to the Kansas Speedway and Sprint Cup Series practice. Race number 3 of the Chase brings us to the heartland of America. And so far in 2010, the Chase has given us, a little bit of everything, including excitement on and off the racetrack. The weather at the Kansas Speedway is absolutely beautiful today. 69 degrees, calm winds, and the forecast is the way we like to see it, sunny. Now, the rumors of the demise of the number 48 team were probably a bit premature, as last weekend Jimmie Johnson and company dominated Dover, got maximum points, and picked up 5 positions in the chase for the championship. And you can easily say the drive for 5 is still alive. Just 35 points out is where Jimmie Johnson runs right now to leader Denny Hamlin. Kyle Busch is also hanging in there well at 45 out. And there we see Clint Bowyer. Going to talk a lot about him in just a moment. Hello, everybody. I'm John Roberts alongside of Larry McReynolds and Jeff Hammond. And guys, throw away your clicker. You do not need the remote control. We will be here with you all day long to bring you bumper-to-bumper coverage from here at the Kansas Speedway. And, Jeff, you saw it just a moment ago. Anybody who thought Jimmie Johnson was out of it, you better think again.
Yeah, you better think again, JR. I mean, that team, they showed up in Dover. They had a plan. Chad Knaus knew they needed to qualify well so they get the best pit position possible as far as that narrow pit road's concerned. They did exactly that. And during the course of the race, he pretty much flexed his muscles, and they never really got into a panic situation. Even when they found themselves behind the 18 car, he just very methodically went to work. Jimmie Johnson showed why he's a 4-time champion. And, guys, a year ago, he was second in the points. Now he's second in the points. You better watch out. He maybe is getting warmed up, baby. It may be real interesting as far as Kansas this weekend.
Yeah, and Larry Mack off the track, though, this week. The big news was Richard Childress Racing. They lost their appeal to NASCAR. There's still hope, but it looks pretty dim.
Yeah, all eyes were watching that appeal. You see Clint Bowyer in the 33 car out on the racetrack. This is kind of his home track. You go back 2 weeks ago at Loudon. He went into that race 12th in the standings. He wins a race, and he catapults up to second in the standings. But in post-race inspection, NASCAR found that the body was not mounted properly. So because of the 150 points they took away from that 33-car driver and owner, he goes all the way back to 12th in standings. RCR appealed it. The appeal committee heard the appeal this past Wednesday. They stayed in favor of NASCAR's ruling, and add that to a very dismal run at Dover last weekend. They come in here 12th in the points, JR, 235 points out of the lead. I know even with 8 races to go, I just think that's an insurmountable amount. The 235 plus all the teams in between that 33 and the points leader of the 11, Denny Hamlin.
Crew Chief Shane Wilson, you see him there, and Clint Bowyer put it very well this morning. He told us, he said that he was not surprised, he was disappointed, but he was not surprised at the decision.
Now, the reason that Shane Wilson can still be at the racetrack, because part of the penalty was a 6-race suspension for Shane Wilson and the car chief, is because they have appealed it again to the appellant officer. He can still be here until that appeal is heard.
Yeah, that's John Middlebrook, who is a former, I guess you may say, big wheel at GM.
He was over GM Racing, yes,
for a long time, so it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. I think next Wednesday they're planning on going back up there and reassert what they have already shown in front of the other previous 3 judges. So it'll be real interesting to see what happens. But I'll be honest with you, if you go look at the records, JR, it doesn't look very good for RCR.
Yeah, clearly one of those names you don't hear very often, but when you do hear it, it is a big deal. Now, the Richard Childress Racing cars have a lot to prove after that. We saw, of course, the incident last weekend between Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick on the racetrack, Larry, but they both say that that is gone. It's past history.
Well, I think they both realize with 8 races to go that their focus better be on this championship. But the thing I see with this 29 team, and I actually talked to some members of that race team, you go back to Dover last week, qualified 33rd, really struggled the entire weekend, ended up finishing 15th. They had a good finish at Loudon. They finished 5th. They did not have a good run. To me, ever since this team won at Michigan back in August, they've been missing a little bit of something. They're 5th in the points, 65 points out. I think they've got to get it in gear if they want to stay a championship contender.
I agree with you.
And, Jeff, that doesn't really bode well for the guy who's leading in points at the end of the regular season. It seems like that driver tends to not do very well when it comes time for the chase.
Well, this is a totally different animal, JR. When you get into the chase, you race totally different. When you're trying to get that position like, Kevin and the rest of his teams were doing early part of the season, you're worried about consistent finishes. You take your wins as you can get them, but you try to make the best out of each day that you go to the racetrack. And right now we're seeing the 29. He's basically giving chase to the 11 of Denny Hamlin. Right now they're running 13th and 15th respectively as far as the timing chart is concerned, but look like they're on a pretty much a long run here. Denny Hamlin's run 4 laps. Kevin Harvick's already run 7. But going back to what Larry's saying, if they don't get refocused, and I'm talking about even the 11, that kind of distraction, they didn't perform that well. Yes, they got what they were looking for out of a bad day, you might say, or out of a bad racetrack for him. Got a top 10 finish, but for the 29 car, they need to get back and do what they did all year long, and they'll be fine because they normally have top 10 runs, and that's what they're looking to do. I think this weekend a win would be great, but they definitely don't need to give up any more points to that 11 car.
It is early yet in Sprint Cup Series practice. Couple names on top of the leaderboard we don't normally see there, but good runs for them so far. Sam Hornish Jr. and David Reagan on top. Today, coming your way from Kansas on Speed, it's NASCAR Live at 2:30 Eastern Time. We'll be back up here for Nationwide Series practice and Sprint Cup Series qualifying at 4:30 Eastern Time. Old DW is going to come join us for that, and you can keep it here on Speed all the way through trackside. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from Kansas is brought to you by Sprint, proud sponsor of the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup, and by Toyota. A mere 8 minutes into this Sprint Cup Series practice session at the Kansas Speedway, and we see the number 77 car of Sam Hornish Jr. is on top of the chart right now, but you better watch out for the number 48 after a win last week. He is red hot, and the drive for 5 is still alive as the 4-time defending champion is back on the right track. Let's go down to Wendy Venturini.
And here in the Cup Garage, Denny Hamlin has already found himself 1 run in this practice session, 16th on the chart. Coming off of last week at Dover, Johnny, he said his goal was to have a top 8 finish. When I sat down with him earlier this week at Charlotte Motor Speedway, he said we got really close to that goal, obviously finishing 9th at Dover, but it's exactly where they wanted to be. He's setting goals every weekend they go to the tracks. Last week, for instance, was a tougher racetrack for Denny Hamlin. Now on the circuit in these final 8 races are some tracks that Denny Hamlin really likes. He was looking forward to coming here to Kansas this weekend and putting last week behind him despite all the comments that were made at Dover and the media attention. He said he was ready to move on. Also talked to Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. They hashed it out. Everything is good, and they are remaining friends in that whole circumstance. Now let's head over to Hermie Sadler.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I want to update everybody on the 33 car of Clint Bowyer. Obviously, he's been in the news a lot this past weekend for the penalties and all the things that went into the appeal process. And Clint said this morning that he had to admit that all the distractions with the penalty and the appeal coming up maybe kept he and his team off their game just a little bit. But Clint is at home this weekend. This is a home track for him. He's been on the racetrack 1 time today. This is the same car they ran at Chicago, but the car was a little bit tight on the first run. They came in, made a couple changes, and ready to get back on the racetrack. And you guys talked about in the booth about the appellate hearing with John Middlebrook. That will take place this Tuesday back away from the racetrack. So still a little bit of hope here in the Children's camp. They can get those points back. Johnny?
Hermie, thanks a lot, and they need them now. Larry, you talked about it just a moment ago. A 25th place finish for Clint Bowyer last weekend did not help his cause.
And you know, the difference in this appeal versus last week's appeal was heard by a committee of 3. This coming appeal will be heard by an audience of 1, John Middlebrook, that Jeff spoke about.
And right now we're taking a look at the number 18 car of Kyle Busch. Imagine that. We have controversy in the Sprint Cup Series, and Kyle Busch isn't involved.
But you know what's amazing, and this just dawned on me this week. Kyle Busch is actually in the middle of 3 championships in 3 different series. He's trying to win the Sprint Cup Series championship, comes in there 3rd in the points, but he's also a part of the Owners' Championship battle with the 18 car in the Nationwide Series, as well as his truck in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series Owners' Championship.
That says a lot, Jeff.
It really does. I mean, and the thing is, I believe that's one reason why we haven't heard a whole lot from him as far as this penalty is concerned. I think he's just been too focused on trying to take care of his business and let everybody else kind of sort through it. Taking a look now at the blue deuce of Kurt Busch, his brother. Kurt right now on the track here, and he's currently 16th quickest. Oh, a little wobble right there off of turn 2. And Larry, let's, I think we need to talk about this pretty quick. This racetrack here at Kansas, we only run here once a year with the Cup Series. A lot of teams are really, were concerned about the amount of grip. And right now that car looks like it's got very little grip on the exit of both corners off the forward cars bobbling around. But this racetrack has been sitting here since a year ago. you know, basically losing more grip. And these tires they got here this time, I think, are a little bit harder. So a lot of teams are really concerned about getting their cars to feel good to their drivers.
And one thing about Kurt Busch, when it comes to the 1.5-mile racetracks, he has been the man, especially in the chase races over the past couple of years.
But he said this week, this is the track that he and Steve Addington had circled. This has not been a good racetrack for Kurt Busch. He has 9 starts here. His average finish is 19.5. He has 3 finishes of 30th or worse. He only has 2 top 10 finishes. In fact, this is only one of 2 racetracks he does not have a top 5 finish. Coincidentally, the other one, Chicagoland Speedway, the sister to this track.
Well, I mean, again, when you think about it, there's not a lot of information to help these guys as far as trying to take care of the, you know, getting their cars dialed in like they'd like to. And he can't afford to give up any more points to Hamlin or Jimmy Johnson. Currently, he's fourth in the points, 59 points back. But, JR, the key thing is everybody knows these first 3 races are so important. You can't afford to get way behind. We've already got over half the field as far as the chase is concerned that are up coming close to 100 points behind. You don't need that.
Right now, Kurt Busch is 16th on the speed chart. Sam Hornish Jr. is leading the way with Jeff Gordon, 2-time winner at this racetrack. We'll be back with more of Sprint Cup Series practice in a moment. Welcome back to Kansas, everyone. The Price Chopper 400 practice for the Sprint Cup Series, and Jeff Burton, you might say, is chomping at the bit, getting ready to hopefully get a victory for that team. Finished second last weekend. That was a really good move for them.
And honestly, they've been one of the more solid cars in these 2 chase races. They had a good, solid top 5 finish coming at Loudon. You see his crew chief Todd Bowyer there. Of course, ran out of fuel with about a lap and a half to go. I found it interesting what Jeff Burton said this past week after Dover. Right now, with those 2 finishes of 15th and 2nd, they're 7th in the points, 80 points back. Jeff said, just remember, we started 60 points out. He said, if we're going to stay in this thing, we're going to be trying to overcome no bonus points from the first 26 races this entire chase. If we're going to stay in it, it's going to come all the way to Homestead before we really become a player.
Well, the Sprint Cup Series only makes 1 trip to Kansas per year. That will change next year, but right now they have no notes to go off of, and as Jeff Burton put it earlier today, that can be tough for these chase teams.
I think it's hard to come here once a year. It's hard to get up to speed, not necessarily get up to speed quickly, but to remember all the little small things that make the big difference. And really, that's what the race is all about, is doing the small things better. And when you start fine-tuning little things, that's when you get optimal. And it's hard to do that at a track that you don't go to as much as other places.
Out of the 10 chase races, come to Kansas once, come to Homestead once, but all the other 8 races, you got a little bit of background before you go there. But normally when you go down to Homestead, the focus is so much changed. You know who's running for the championship, and it's just a different beast than coming to this place when you don't have the notebook.
This is the last year we're going to have to worry about that, though, because just look at everything that's going on here at Kansas Speedway. They've put lights in because one of the races next year will be under the lights. See the cranes out back of the backstretch there? A big hotel casino is being built. Outside of turn 3 and 4, a big soccer stadium is being built. And I know I'm excited to the fact that our last race of NASCAR on Fox next year will be here at Kansas Speedway. We'll be coming here in the late spring and fall.
And it'll be a good thing that we're going to have those lights because of that, too, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, that soccer stadium will host the Kansas City Wizards. And another good thing about the lights, you remember back just a few short years ago when Greg Biffle won that race. There's a lot of controversy after that. Everybody was saying, why don't they have lights? Why do we have to call that race? Because of darkness.
And, you know, we've been coming here since 2001. And when we first came here, at the junction of the 2 interstates here, there was nothing but this speedway. 10 years later, it's almost a city of its own. I mean, it is absolutely, I think, a delight for the fans to come to. And one thing that may delight the Bill Elliott fans, at least early in this practice, this 21 car is fastest.
Guys, you know, whenever the Wood brothers show up, especially Bill Elliott behind the wheel, they bring a fast race car. And once again, they prove that. They've got to qualify on speed. I know Bill's got a fallback as far as the championship provision is concerned. That's not their style of racing. And once again, they're trying to show the way. Only 3 laps of practice, but top of the leaderboard.
They have to be a little careful, though, with that championship provisional because Bobby Labonte is here in the 09 car, and he would get it first because he's the most recent champion.
That's right.
If Bill Elliott keeps up that speed right now, he should do just fine. Jamie McMurray, 5th on the speed chart right now after 8 laps out there, and we all know his history so far this year. He would love to spoil the party again for the Chasers because he was the last driver to do it in Talladega last year. Last driver who was outside of the chase to win a chase race.
And you know, Jeff and Darrell Waltrip and I, we do a thing each week. It airs on Friday on foxsports.com called 3 Wide Coverage. Jeff pretty much hosts the show, and we were talking this week that we felt like that this could be one of the chase races that a non-chase guy goes to victory lane. We talked about McMurray. We talked about Montoya. We talked about David Ruderman that won at Chicagoland back in July. This could be the weekend where we see someone other than a chase driver to go to victory lane. The last time we saw a non-chase driver go to victory lane, McMurray did it at Talladega last fall.
And JR, to go one step further, as we watch Juan Pablo Montoya, we talk about guys who come in here and kind of upset the ship. Don't forget Ryan Newman and Mark Martin have both won here, and they're non-chasers. I mean, so there's guys that can, upset this little thing they got going on with the guys that are in the chase as far as winning races are concerned.
And it's a tale of 2 races the last couple of times we've raced here. Of course, last year it was a great race for the Chasers. The top 10 was full of them. The race before that, out of the chase races, there were more Chasers that finished outside of the top 30 than any other chase race. So it's been a mixed bag for Chasers at Kansas.
It's an interesting race. It's 267 laps. It's 400 miles. If you just look at the 2 wins that Tony Stewart has had here, in 2006, he won it on fuel mileage. He stretched the mileage at the end of the race. If you go back to last year, Darian Grubb made a call late in the race to go with 2 tires, and he won the race. So this race absolutely can come down to strategy.
Very much so.
Your guys in yellow are the ones that won when they were in the chase. Tony Stewart in 2009, of course, Jimmy Johnson in 08, the Biff back in 2007, and that was the wacky race that had the rain and then the sun came back out for a little while. So, like we said, it's been a very mixed bag, and there is Joey Logano currently 10th on the speed chart after 10 laps on the track.
Tell you what, this team has been on a roll here of late. I know they got caught up in a wreck at Loudon, but they've had 2 top 5 finishes in the last 3 races, including that good run that they had at Richmond, and then ended up finishing 3rd last week at Dover.
That kind of like was a nice little payback after what he went through last year at Dover when he was doing barrel rolls out of turn 3.
Yeah. That was not the way you want to race Dover at all. And also, it's kind of an interesting position for Joey Logano to be in. Out of the 3 Joe Gibbs racing teams, he's the one that is not in the chase. And sometimes it's good to have friends out there who aren't in the chase to help the chasers out.
And one thing about it, and it's probably not necessarily on Joey Logano's mind, but right now, I know we have 8 races to go. This would be the first year in the existence of this 20 car that they've not went to victory lane at least one time.
And he is running out of time, as we don't have that much time left in this season. We'll crown a champion 8 races down the road here, and perhaps Joey Logano can get his win before that is said and done. There's last week's winner, Jimmy Johnson. He wants to get another win here as well. We'll be back with practice in a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to the Kansas Speedway. About a half hour into this practice session for the Sprint Cup Series. And Jeff Hammond, when you look at this racetrack, I think once again we have to take that cookie-cutter mentality out of the 1.5-mile racetracks because this is a unique layout.
It really is. I mean, the only thing consistent between a 1.5-mile racetrack and another 1.5-mile racetrack for Larry Mack is a 1.5 miles. Otherwise, you're looking at 15 degrees of banking in the corners. The front straightaway has got quite a bit of banking, 10.4. But the big catcher, I think, on this whole deal is the backstretch. It flattens out to only 5 degrees. So getting off of turn 2 can be a little bit tricky. We've already seen a couple guys, get a little bit tail happy on the exit of that corner. So I think that's probably one of the things you got to be more conscious of is getting your car on the exit of these corners to work like you want it to.
Yeah, of the 8 chase races that we have left, half of them are on 1.5 mile racetracks. But this one is nothing like Texas, Charlotte, or Homestead. In fact, one of the engineers told me, he said, you actually have to have some flat track thinking, some bank track consideration, and hopefully some good notes from the last time we were here a year ago. And that may help you get around this 1.5 mile racetrack. I think Hermie's going to tell us about a guy that's getting around here pretty good right now. Jeff Gordon's 3rd quickest.
Yeah, he is, Larry Mack. And we got a couple crew chiefs up in the booth. I want to get your thoughts on this. Watching Jeff Gordon, he's a 2-time winner here. 3rd fastest so far in practice. They're in qualifying trim. Went out and made a run, came back in, made a couple changes. But the interesting thing we've been watching with this team is not only how they're closely monitoring the oil temperature of the engine, the water temperature of the engine, but they've spent a long time when they came into pits here, these blue blowers that we normally see cooling the engine down, they've been using these to cool the tires down off the car. They took the tires off the car, used this blower to get the tire temperature back to exactly what Steve Letarte wanted so that they can repeat what they've done on the racetrack on stickers. So it's not just about coming in and cooling the engine down and going back out, guys, but they're monitoring oil, water, tire temperature, everything. Now they're going back to make a run on scuffs, Larry Mack.
Well, we tend to believe, Jeff, that when these guys qualify today, as hot as it is here, they'll probably be on sticker tires, but you can't put stickers on there every time you go out. But if you go out there with heat in the tires, you're deceiving yourself as far as what the car is going to drive like.
Yeah, I used to try whenever it was crew chief to try to get the guys to give me a reading on how hot the tire was, a brand new tire coming off the stack. When you put it on the car, you know, was it at 80 degrees or 90 degrees? And then you try to cool the tire temperature, the surface of the tire back down to that, again, whenever possible, JR. So that way you're trying to repeat as much as you possibly can from run to run. You keep the car full, keep those tire pressures and tire temperatures consistent, and along with the oil and the water as Hermie was talking about. That way you've got a better idea that any kind of change you're making, did it make me go faster? And that's the whole thing, are you comfortable and can you go faster?
There are only two drivers that have won at this racetrack twice. Jeff Gordon did it back in 2001 and 2002, winning the inaugural race, and then the next year, and Tony Stewart is a two-time winner as well.
Well, the most asked question by fans is, when is Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to win a race? I think the second most asked question is, when's Jeff Gordon going to run a race? And this could definitely be the weekend. As you mentioned, won the first two races. He's sitting on 3 consecutive top 5 finishes here. We've been relating this track a little bit to Chicagoland Speedway. He finished 3rd there in July. He's 3rd quickest in practice. Maybe this is the weekend for that 24 car.
Well, you talk about the 24. How about the 43? A.J. Allmendinger, I think he turned a lot of heads last weekend at Dover. Very strong run until they had a flat tire on that 43 car. But even then, when they got down the lap, they battled their way back up. I mean, they had a very solid run last weekend.
That's actually 2 weekends in a row they've had a good race car. Ran out of fuel early in the race at Loudon and just never was able to overcome that.
We'll talk about a good guest lineup. How about trackside tonight? The 43 driver, A.J. Allmendinger, will be on with you gentlemen and several other ones, and Chris Devoda as well. But tonight, 4-time NASCAR Sprint Cup champion Jimmy Johnson stops by as well by the biggest party in racing. Don't miss NASCAR trackside from Kansas. When it comes to the drivers in the 2010 Chase, here are their practice times in this session. 90-minute session. We're 30 minutes into it right now, and Jeff Gordon leads the way among the chasers. He is 3rd fastest. Jimmy Johnson is 8th fastest. But Mr. Hammond, here is the mystery, the number 99, 37.
You know, I don't know what's going on down there. Right now, he's way on down that list, only run a couple of laps. And Wendy, to me, 30 minutes into this practice, only run 2 laps. That's not good.
Yeah, that's exactly the case for Carl Edwards. He's 37th, 2 laps in this practice. As you guys mentioned, he says the right front is undrivable. That's the description for Carl Edwards. Now, a few of these cars have spent quite some time in the garage, Carl Edwards being probably one of the more times that have been spent in the garage, and they've been on scales trying to get this chassis adjustment. Something similar on the 48s going on in their garage area, too. They've been on scales quite some time and have only run a few laps. But right now, Carl Edwards is trying to give the best feedback possible for Bob Osborne in those few laps to get it fixed and make him more comfortable in that race car.
Wendy, thanks. Here's another mystery for you. 2005 race winner here at Kansas, Mark Martin, has not been out on the track yet at all, Jeff.
I don't understand that at all. I mean,
normally he's the first one to hit the racetrack.
Yeah, there's something going on there again that's a miss. And guys, you just can't, I mean, as a crew chief, I mean, an owner and teammates, whatever, one of the first things when you get fussed at, you've got to get out. You've got to be prepared to go practice. You can't give up this time. There's such a few amount of practice sessions, and the time is limited and restricted. You've got to be prepared to go on the racetrack. There's no excuse for not having at least a lap on the race car by this time.
Well, we will get the lowdown on that story for you, but right now, David Rudiman, 00 of Michael Waltrip Racing, is 9th fastest on the speed chart.
You know, I want to go back to that Carl Edwards. That's a mystery to me, because I know talking to that group, they felt like that Matt Kenseth and the 17 group ran so well at Chicagoland Speedway back in July. I know the 17 was going to unload very close to how they ran Chicagoland. They're 12th quickest. So Bob Osborne and Carl Edwards unloaded very close to how the 17 unloaded setup-wise. and they're sitting back there 37.
Are you sure about that?
Best on the information I gathered.
As I said, are you sure about that? Because I know that sometimes, you know, you may have a good intention of doing something, JR, but if all three of you unload with the same thing, it may not give you an opportunity to go off in a different direction. So I know at one time we all used to always try to unload a little different. That way, if my setup was faster than yours, you could come back to me, or vice versa. So I think that sometimes you have to take in consideration. I'd like to know. I don't need to know. I'd like to be informed whether or not how close that 99 was to that 17, because clearly Matt Kenseth is competitive. The 99 is not.
You know, you look at this 7 car of Kevin Conway, a really cool story evolving around this car, and the sponsorship extends. The Extends Local Hero program, they are resuming it here at Kansas, and Reverend Jim McWilliams was named the local hero. He's been trying to keep things open for his nephew that's been missing, Jeff, since July of 1991 when he was 11 years old. And I guess just most recently, there was another missing person that was found, and I think that's given this group hope that it's still possible. They decided to put the picture of the young man on this race car this weekend, Charles Henderson, with hopes that maybe someone will see that on that car and spark a thought that, you know what, we've seen that young man.
You know, guys, if you go back 37 races, half of those races have been won by either Jimmy Johnson in the 48 or this gentleman, Denny Hamlin, in the number 11. And Wendy has more on Denny.
Denny Hamlin, 18th in this practice session. Johnny has run approximately 17 laps right now. They've made quite a few runs compared to some other people trying to get it tuned in. He said he's a little too loose late exit, better in the center. It's a little bit neutral. He wished the initial throttle was a little bit freer, and on late exit a little bit tighter. Those were the wishes from Denny Hamlin. So they're just trying to get him dialed in on that race car. Mike Ford trying to copy those demands that Denny Hamlin wants to see out of his race car. Hermie Sadler?
Yeah, I want to update you guys on Mark Martin, the 5 car. He has not made a lap on the racetrack yet, as you guys discussed. It's a fuel pressure issue for the 5 car. I just spoke to Jeff Andrews, head engine builder for Hendrick Motorsports, and they are trying to evaluate and going through a list of checks onto why this car will not keep fuel pressure for Mark Martin. Once they get that cleared up, he will be on the racetrack, but as of right now, it's a fuel pressure issue for Mark Martin.
And I think the first place they'll be looking will be that fuel pump cable. But as you see Denny Hamlin in the 11 car coming into the garage area, 20th quickest, he was asked this week, 5 years ago, this is where his Sprint Cup Series career started, and they asked him about making the chase all 5 years. He said, you know what, there's no way I could even fathom that. And 5 years later, to be here at Kansas as the points leader, he said, there is no way I would have ever believed all this would happen in 5 years.
Certainly a great story about Denny Hamlin back in the day of, you know, the parents getting the second mortgage on the house just so he could keep racing. And this is something we got to keep an eye on this weekend. One of 2 pink cars that we know about on the racetrack, the number 56 of Martin Truex Jr., helping out the Susan G. Komen breast cancer awareness. It kicks off this month, and a lot of cities around the country right now are doing their walks, their race for the cures this weekend. And Martin's one of the guys out there, Elliott Sadler as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but our hometown of Charlotte, they got a big walk coming up this weekend there, and hopefully, I think they had like 10,000 walkers there a year ago. They're looking for the weather to be perfect, and they expect a bigger crowd again. I think it's just a great tribute to the cause that they bring this kind of awareness each and every time that the month of October rolls around. And here again, 56 car Martin Truex Jr. sporting that pink color.
It looks like he's in race trim. He's run a total of
so.
14 laps because right now he's 36 quickest.
And Martin Truex Jr. is one of 14 drivers that will be attempting double duty. We will have you covered on that throughout the rest of the day as we have the Nationwide Series practices also on speed as well. So keep it right here. We'll be back in a moment with more of Price Chopper 400 practice. Welcome back, everybody, to Price Chopper 400 practice. There you see Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin talking to crew chief Mike Ford. And, of course, those guys are in the thick of it right now as they are 2 of your top 3 drivers in the chase.
And you know, I don't want to shortcut Kurt Busch. I don't want to shortcut Richard Childress Racing. But I truly believe it's those 2 guys right there versus the 48 team for this championship. I know we still got 8 races to go. We got to go to Martinsville. We've got to go to Talladega. But just based on performance, I think that's your players along with that 48 car.
And those are guys who have won at tracks like that before. Of course, Denny Hamlin done great at Martinsville over the years, and Kyle Busch has done well on the restrictor plate tracks as well.
And how about Kyle Busch? By winning that Nationwide Series race at Dover last week where he led over 190 laps, Kyle Busch now, at the age of 25, 81 career wins in the top 3 series, and also with that win, he set a new Nationwide Series single-season record of 11 wins, with still a lot more to go.
Tony Stewart is a 2-time winner at this track, and Jeff Hammond, he got off to not the kind of start you want to with the fuel mileage gamble. I guess you could call it a gamble, but then again, there was nothing else he really could do.
No, he was kind of like, once they made that decision, he was committed up at Loudon. But last weekend, I was really surprised that he did not perform better. Now, granted, he put himself in a big hole by coming down pit road on a green flag stop and getting caught speeding, and this team never did recover. I mean, that was one of the negatives right there as far as his day in Dover is concerned. But they come to a racetrack where he's won twice, a little bit like Jimmy Johnson. I feel like that they have got to make a statement here today, this weekend. They need to have a good qualifying effort. Currently, he's 29th quickest. He's run 11 laps. I think he's in a race trim mode right now, but they need to have a good qualifying effort. And Darian Grubb and this team, they need to get to victory lane if at all possible, but they definitely need to finish first or second, at least in the top 3, in my opinion, to be able to say that they've got an opportunity to salvage their season. Otherwise, they find themselves way down in points right now.
The pattern I see with this 14 car, a good indication how they're going to be on Sunday is how they are on Friday in qualifying. If you just look at the last 5 races, he qualified 5th at Atlanta. He goes out and leads 176 laps and wins the race. He qualifies 15th at Richmond. That's where he runs all night long in the race on Saturday night. Qualified 3rd at Loudon. Ran up there good enough to be a contender all day long. Qualified 25th at Dover. And I know he had the pit road speeding penalty. So did Kurt Busch. But Kurt was able to rebound and finish 4th. That's about where Tony ran all day long.
And right now, Tony Stewart is the slowest of the Chase drivers. One of the faster cars throughout this entire practice session has been Sam Hornish Jr. in the 77. 16 laps out on the field, out on the track there, Larry, and that's putting him up the top of the field.
And you know, there's a lot of stories surrounding this 77 car and Sam Hornish Jr. as far as moving ahead to 2011. I know they're in a sponsorship search for this 77 car. I get a feeling that very possibly Penske Racing on the Sprint Cup Series side next year may be a 2-car team, pretty much with Brad Keselowski and Kurt Busch. We're hearing that Sam Hornish possibly may be sharing a ride in the Nationwide Series next year, unless he can come up with something else in Cup.
And that tells you just how tough it is right now to secure sponsorships when a guy like Roger Penske is unable to field 3 cars.
Economy's really hurt a lot of these teams, and it makes it very difficult for people like Sam Hornish who need sponsorship. But this weekend they've got AAA on the car in Kenwood, but that's where a lot of these teams are kind of like sit right now. They're trying to find and secure sponsorship for 2011 and forward. Fortunately for Jimmy Johnson, he has a pretty decent sponsor in Lowe's and Cobalt. And this weekend they got John Mansell on the car. And Wendy, I see that they're trying to probably get their qualifying package tuned up a little bit more on this run.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson has a feel for it, according to his quote to his crew chief, Chad Knaus. He said it's reacting to the input that they're giving it, but it's driving in the similar manner that it had earlier. And he said it's not as tight as it was earlier, but it's still not exactly where he wanted. Earlier, he could feel the tires getting across the center of the racetrack and when it turned earlier for him. So now that's changed and that's improved in this run for Jimmy Johnson, as we were just listening to he and Chad Knaus communicate about that as he brings it in. They have spent quite some time in the garage actually on scales at the beginning part of this practice session, so I know they're trying to fine-tune it, and every time they go out they definitely find more speed.
Well, and Wendy, there's no question, watching Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson with the weather forecast being great all weekend long, they are focused on one thing and one thing only today. Just like their teammate Jeff Gordon in the 24 car, just like this 42 car that just became the fastest, they are focusing on qualifying and qualifying only today.
As Jimmy Johnson showed us last weekend, it can be a full weekend process. You go out there, you get the pole, you lead the most laps, and you get out of there with the win, and you have the maximum points.
That's the way you do it. And right now we're taking a look. I say that Juan Pablo Montoya just finished making his qualifying run. But, JR, I'm going to bring it up real quick. We're going to talk about a lot more as we go into this practice. This is the one and only practice session before qualifying, so they got to get it right now. For Juan Pablo, luck of the draw, he goes out number 5. I think it's Kansas City's another one of the places. A late draw is a big plus for Jimmy Johnson, 21st. But guess who gets the best draw of the day? As far as the Chaser is concerned, the 29 car of Kevin Harvick. He'll go out 35th.
It's the only night race in the Chase. Tickets are available October 15th and 16th. Go to Charlotte Motor Speedway. Get $20 off tickets by bringing an empty bottle of Z-Max Micro Lubricant to the CMS ticket office. I might get a bottle right now. Sunday, NASCAR race day storms into Kansas. Mark Martin joins us live on the Home Depot stage. Plus, Jimmy Johnson talks about his dominant performance in Dover. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot. Live from Kansas, Sunday at 10 Eastern, only on Speed. That is the car driven by Mark the Kid Martin. You know what, Larry? We're going to have another very special guest on race day Sunday.
Our good buddy DW is going to join you guys, and he's going to join us a little later on for Sprint Cup Series qualifying, as well as he'll join you, I think, and Phil Parsons for final Nationwide Series practice.
Well, guys, as they continue to work on the 5 car, it continues to look like he has a 5 problem, fuel problem as far as he's concerned. He hasn't been out on the racetrack yet, but this guy, the 99 of Carl Edwards, earlier he was over about 36th, 37th fastest, has now jumped to 11th quickest. So it looks like they fixed his problem.
Guys, I'm getting kind of a lonely feeling here. There was only one car on the racetrack. That was Carl Edwards, and he just pulled in.
Well, I think two things are going on. One, the guys that are making just qualifying runs, like Jeff Gordon, like Montoya and Jimmy Johnson, they're in there cooling everything back down like Kermit was talking about a while ago. A lot of the guys that were in race trim as we are halfway through this practice, they are now flipping over to qualifying trim probably, Jeff.
I'm curious to know whether or not this 14 car has made a change from race to qualifying. Hermie, you got anything on him?
Yeah, Jeff, he's still in race trim. They just came in and they changed the right rear spring on this 14 car. He's a little bit free on entry, but the biggest trouble is tight center and off. Trying to get the car to turn right in the middle of the corner. He is 30th on the speed chart, but he is still in race trim with a right rear spring change, Jeff.
And I would say there's a good chance, Jeff, that they probably put more right rear spring in it. That can actually correct both the problems that he's fighting, because if the car's loose getting in, a little heavier right rear spring keeps that right rear spoiler up in the air, but yet mechanically it'll help the car turn center off.
And that's one of the things, I know I talked to Kurt Busch about this. That's one of the key things about this racetrack. You've got to get the car to rotate early to get through the center here. A lot like other racetracks, but here you kind of trick it a little bit, JR, because the race corners themselves are a little bit tighter radius than a lot of places we go to.
When it comes to championships and Tony Stewart, it's one thing to say you're a winner in everything you've driven. It's another thing to say you're a champion in everything you've driven. And Tony Stewart has won championships in so many different disciplines in racing. And also, he's our only guy that has won the old Winston Cup format like we had, and also the new Chase format that we have now.
That's true. And in the garage earlier today, I was talking to a couple of crew chiefs, and we were talking about drivers. And the one guy that came up was Tony Stewart, and they compared him to the legendary A.J. Foyt as being one of the very few drivers you say is not only a champion in both of his series, but he can drive anything. It doesn't make any difference. I don't care if it's a lawnmower, a sprint car, a cup car here, or an open wheel Indy car. Tony Stewart is a fantastic, feel for driving cars.
One time in Ed Spencer's junkyard, he drove a junk Cadillac on the dirt and beat everybody's butt. Tony did.
Well, the problem is, for 8 races, he's going to have to really beat everybody's butt, because with 2 finishes outside the top 20, he comes in here 10th in the points, 162 points out. What is significant about 162? That's 1 point more than a full race behind leader Denny Hamlin. And that's a mark you certainly have to look at. Currently 4th on the speed chart, Jeff Gordon, a 2-time winner at this track. It has been so long since he has visited Victory Lane. What a perfect place for him to do that. Or I guess any racetrack would be the perfect
place. Any place would be a perfect place. But for guys like Jeff Gordon and his crew chief Steve Letarte, they're trying to take a page out of their teammates' book right now. All they're doing is focusing on qualifying, JR. He just made another qualifying attempt here, and that 24 car remains the same as far as the speed's concerned. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback he gives to Letarte as we get closer toward the end of this practice session.
Got to go back to Texas in 2009 to find the last time that Jeff Gordon has won. That's 57 races. That is a very, very long winless streak.
But this has been a good racetrack like we were speaking earlier. You know, one thing, and you can see it above Jeff Gordon's car there. This is in the corner. One thing I was noticing is how black this track is already turning. Now, I realize that we had a 150-mile ARCA race here last night that was actually won by Richard Childress' other grandson, Ty Dillon. But I think another thing that's going on, we talked about Goodyear changing the tire. From the package that we ran here last year, there has been a construction change, the way the tire is built, to both sides, left and right, to give the cars more grip. But there's been a compound change to the right side to help rubber the racetrack in. I am amazed already how black this track is turning in the corner.
A little bit like Dover last weekend, JR. We saw a lot of rubber put down. The racetrack went through a lot of transitions. Expect the same thing this weekend here at Kansas City.
Well, we've crossed them up. We're better than halfway through this practice session. 90 minutes for the Sprint Cup Series drivers. Denny Hamlin, he's your points leader, and we'll be back to Kansas in a moment. Sprint brings you an inside look at what is happening now inside the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, and that is the 11 car driven by Denny Hamlin. He has been your points leader for 3 weeks this season from Richmond through Dover, and he got that by virtue of winning 6 races, including the one at his hometown track that set us up for this 10-race chase at Richmond. For more NASCAR stats, in-car audio, and live race radio, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile at sprint.com/speed. And you better keep an eye on his teammate as well, the number 18 car driven by Kyle Busch. They are the ones that are right next to each other. They're in the garage area. And Wendy Venturini has more on the number 18 car. Wendy?
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, Kyle Busch comes in Kansas with a 45-point deficit, third in points right now. Now, he was feeling like he had to back up the corner so much that it didn't have anything for his setup to hold, that it was sliding up the racetrack. It was a little bit loose on exit. He said he was compensating too much to try and get the setup good in his mind. So they made some adjustments, and this last time out, those adjustments proved beneficial for Kyle Busch. He said it turned really, really good, and Kyle Busch sounded confident when he said it. He said when he got in the gas in 3 and 4 is when it felt the best. He thinks he drove it in too far, which of course is a problem when you're trying to make your mock qualifying runs. You actually have to back these corners up some in order to get those faster speeds, but Kyle Busch is very confident with the changes they've made to this race car in this practice session. Johnny?
Thank you, Wendy. And Larry, this is not the only championship chase that Kyle Busch is involved in. He's got a lot of other championship aspirations on other series.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that earlier. You know, he has caught up in the Owners' Championship battle in the Nationwide Series with the Joe Gibbs car, the 18 car, which he's going to be in that car for most of the rest of the season, as well as the Owners' Championship of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series with his own number 18 truck.
No adjustment to your set necessary. That is just a different paint scheme look for Greg Biffle. The Biff has won here before. Of course, it was the Bazaar race that he won in that was called on account of darkness. But and also another guy you just don't hear much about, Paul Menard. And, you know, people have different feelings about Paul Menard because his name is on the race car. But at the same time, though, this is a driver that certainly, I mean, your name can't give you talent on the racetrack. You certainly have to get the job done.
No, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's been tapped to go over and become the 4th team at Richard Childress Racing in 2011. You know, Paul has really shown a lot of promise, a lot of improvement over the 2010 season, not only here in the Sprint Cup Series, but also in the Nationwide Series. And you know, they keep putting up solid runs. I mean, he had a good run last weekend. Currently, he's 17th. Did I say this right? Lost him right there a minute ago.
He's third quickest. Right
That's
now.
right. He was down with about a qualifying run. He jumped off the 3rd quickest. He was like 14th when I looked a moment ago. Elliott Sadler just made a qualifying attempt in his pink number 19. He now jumps up to 13th quickest. But, JR, I think that's the reason why Paul Menard is starting to turn a lot of heads in the garage here. Not only is he having solid runs, he's been able to put periods on those solid runs, good finishes at the end.
And I'm going to tell you, I think what gets underrated is the fact of how he and his crew chief, Slugger Labby, are really clicking right now. You know, I don't know what the status is on the whole situation with Slugger, but I feel like it would be a wonderful deal if Slugger could make the move to Richard Childress Racing with him. Just look at Dover last week with Paul Menard as we see Elliott Sadler, that Jeff just mentioned, finished his qualifying runs. Paul qualified 9th, ran in the top 10 almost all day long, and ended up finishing 7th last week.
And for Front Row Motorsports, Jeff, got a little driver shuffling going on this weekend with some different different drivers and different numbers, but it's always been kind of hard to keep track of those guys all season long.
You have to check the name on top of the door every weekend when you come in the racetrack, and this weekend we got Travis Quapple in the 34 car. And I think everybody here toward the end of the season, JR, they're looking for a little bit of a boost, somebody to help them get into a race, especially these guys who have to qualify on time. Everybody's always looking to try to go faster. The 34, he's been solid. He's in the top 36, I think, in points right at the moment. But, for Travis, another great opportunity to kind of showcase what he's got going on.
And sometimes throughout this year, you would have seen another driver enter that camp in the 38, but this time it is Dave Blaney who is driving the number 38 for Front Row Motorsports. Back to Kansas in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. There's the number 24 car driven by Jeff Gordon, a two-time winner here. And this practice session is 2/3 of the way through. We have 30 minutes left. Let's now go to Hermie Sadler as more on driver 24.
Yeah, you see Jeff Gordon on the racetrack in this 24 car. This is a sticker run. He made 3 runs on their first set of tires and gave Jeff Gordon, fighting a little bit of a tight condition as we discussed earlier. But they made some adjustments. His first time back on the racetrack with stickers, making another qualifying run. We'll see if he is able to pick his speed back up. Started out in the top 5. He has moved slowly as other guys have made qualifying runs, has moved him outside of the top 10.
Well, we were going to play off Denny Hamlin being the fastest, but I think Big Daddy just took that honor because Jeff Gordon just ran a 31:13 to Denny Hamlin's 31:14.
Yeah, it looked like Denny had done put one down there for everybody to take a look at. And Jeff said, wait a minute, big boy, I'm not done yet.
I've got a good feeling about this 24 car this weekend. I know his numbers are phenomenal here, but there's something about Jeff Gordon and Kansas Speedway. I think this could be the weekend that all the Jeff Gordon fans have been looking for a while.
But you know what, Larry, we didn't touch on it too much, but at the same time, early part of the season, you got to believe right now that Jeff Gordon had some opportunities to win some races early this year, and they let him kind of slip through their fingers. We take a look at Clint Bowyer, who now says, hey, guys, this is my state, and I'm hometown favorite, and I'm now the fastest.
Jeff Gordon had about 2 laps to be on top of the speed chart there for a second, and then Clint took it away. So Clint Bowyer, definitely from Emporia, Kansas, wants to put on a good show for the hometown fans. Going to have a lot of people here rooting for Clint.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you can't get people here in your home state to pull for you, you're in a lot of trouble.
When you talk about Jeff Gordon, if anybody knows firsthand why you have to win races in the chase to win the championship, it has to be Jeff Gordon. Just a couple short years ago, he averaged a top 5 finish, averaged a top 5, and lost the championship battle to his teammate.
And John, you talked about his last win being at Texas Motor Speedway last spring. Jeff Gordon has finished second 8 times since that last win.
Right now, he's third.
Yeah, he's third because Matt Kenseth has jumped to the top of the speed chart.
I mean, the thing is right now, folks, it seems like every car we put up on the screen, thank you to Mark and Mark, our 2 guys down in the truck, our producer and director, they seem like they catch the guys that are making the fast laps. 12's got to show now. Yeah, come on, Mr. Keselowski.
Well, he got a pole just a couple of weeks ago at Loudon, New Hampshire, his first career pole in the Sprint Cup Series. Let's see what Brad can do. 18th quickest.
Jumped way up because he was 37th before, so that's a big jump. Didn't get him to the top of the board by showing him, but that seems to be the thing that's the common theme that's going on in this practice session. But this is a very exciting time because people are putting different qualifying setups underneath the car, and we're going to see a lot of shuffling going on.
Yeah, I mean, they're cooling those engines down. They're going with sticker, brand new Goodyear tires, putting the tape on the nose. This racetrack, with the way these corners are, with not a lot of banking, the car loves tape on the nose because that really helps plant the nose, plus certainly helps the straightaway speed.
And the other thing is right now, JR, you got basically monitor fever down in that garage here right now. Everybody's watching the monitor. Who's throwing up what number? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? A lot of pressure on not only the teams, but also the guys behind the wheel. We take a look here at the Casey Kane in the number 9 car. Let's see what Kane can do right now. He's been struggling so far in this practice session. He's 9th quickest. He's run 15 laps. So you got to believe that Kenny Francis has got a qualifying package underneath this car now.
This has probably been one of the biggest disappointments over the last month or month and a half. If you go back to June and July, we felt like this team was going to make a run and get into the chase, and then they kind of just fell off the map. Look at Dover last week, which has been a great racetrack for him. Qualified 16th, finished 28th.
So now Casey Kane has jumped up to the 6th spot from the 36th spot, so he definitely picked up some speed in his qualifying setup. Race fans, we want to offer you a couple bits of advice. First of all, come out here to Kansas if you can get here. Other than that, keep it right here on Speed. Download the new free Speed app to your iPhone. Keep Speed at your fingertips and fuel your passion for racing between events with Speed on your phone. Get the latest stats, results, and videos. Search Speed Channel on iTunes. Race fans, welcome back to the Kansas Speedway and the Price Chopper 400 practice. We have about 20 minutes left to go in this session that was 90 minutes long, and also the only chance before qualifying for the Sprint Cup Series teams to practice. Let's go to Wendy Venturini.
And Clint Bowyer made his mock qualifying run, and the team is feeling pretty confident about it. He's second right now in this practice session after that Q trim. Crew Chief Shane Wilson said we're going to try even more. In about 15 more minutes, you'll see Clint Bowyer go back out for another mock qualifying run. And Shane said they're going to mess with the tape, like you guys were mentioning right before that commercial break, to get it even closer to their qualifying trim. So it sounds like they weren't exactly where they want to be for qualifying trim with the tape set up on the nose, but definitely feel good about it. Now, he did run the bottom line, and Clint Bowyer has now relayed this information to Kevin Harvick down in the garage area, so Kevin Harvick can run a similar line for his qualifying trim. Now let's head over to Hermie Sadler on the other side of the garage area.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. We're talking about teams that every time they go on the racetrack, they're getting faster. Today, we only come here once a year. Every lap you get on the racetrack is a benefit, but not such good luck for the 47 car Marcus Ambrose. Engine issues in this Toyota. They are changing engines, pulling the primary engine out. They have a backup engine ready to go. You can see the headers getting ready to go on the side of that engine, and that will go into the 47 car. That's the good news. The bad news is he is done for this practice. Very few laps on the racetrack for the 47 car.
Yeah, Hermie, he's run a total of 11 laps, 41st on the practice sheet, which means when he qualifies, it will be for pit selection only. He'll have to start this race at the rear of the field.
There's Gil Martin, one of the brain trust of Richard Childress Racing. What a difference a year makes. Last year, all 3 RCR cars were outside of the chase looking in. Now they are in there as Kevin Harvick is 13th on the speed chart, and these guys are definitely working together. They had the whole situation off the track with Clint Bowyer. Clint said this morning, though, he told us, he said, man, I don't want this to be a distraction to the rest of the teams. We got to get the championship.
Yeah, best thing they can do right there is forget it, move on, and do what you got to do as far as win some races, score some big points. And we take a look here at Jamie McMurray, the 1 car. He's currently 21st fastest. He's run 15 laps in this practice session.
And Jamie McMurray should not forget anything about this year. What has happened to this guy for a guy who was on the outside looking in and perhaps not even having a ride? He goes out and wins the 2 biggest races of the season.
And his teammate just jumped back to the top of the practice sheet. Montoya ran a 31:03, and he is flanked by 7 chase drivers, 2nd through 8th right now behind him.
Got to be a tough situation for a driver like Scott Speed to be out there right now, guys, and really you're only hearing rumors about what his fate will be. We know there's going to be a lot of changes at Red Bull Racing. Most notably next year is the addition of Casey Kane. So you might, wonder what's going to happen.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second because I think we definitely need to add. But, Hermie, what's going on in the 5 camp?
Yeah, we're back checking on Martin Martin. We just talked about the 47 car. Well, the 5 car is now changing engines as well. A fuel pump drive inside of the engine was the culprit, so they're having to change engines on the 5 car. Mark was on the pole here last year and is a former winner, but he, just like the 47 car, losing a lot of valuable practice time here at Kansas, guys.
So that's 2 weeks in a row that he's going to have to start at the rear of the field. If you go back last week at Dover, qualified 3rd, but NASCAR found in post-qualifying inspection the right rear shock exceeded the maximum gas pressure, so he'll have to start at the rear of the field on Sunday here as well.
But the big difference right there between last week and this week, Larry, he at least got some practice. They took his practice time and his qualifying time away from him. He's not been on a racetrack yet. He's not got a clue what this 5 car is going to do, and he will not get an opportunity to do that until he takes the green flag during qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon, JR.
Just like the situation with the number 31 car in Richard Childress Racing, what a difference a year makes. This time last year, we were talking about a potential championship for Mark Barton. Now we see him up on the jack stands and changing the motor.
But right now, the RCR car is looking pretty good. Bowyer is 3rd. Burton just laid down the 12th quickest lap, and Harvick is 14th. But real quick, we promised we were going to talk about the Red Bull cars. Think about it. They've got 2 race teams, and right now, looking to 2011, potentially 4 drivers: Scott Speed, Brian Vickers, Reed Sorensen, and as we know, Casey Kane.
There is Richard Childress. He is the patriarch and also the proud grandfather of a winner so far this weekend, as Ty Dillon won the ARCA race. We'll be back with much more Sprint Cup Series practice in a moment. Now there's our good friend Elliott Sadler. What he lacks in speed right now, he's 28th on the chart. He is certainly making up for in fashion sense.
Are you trying to say his version of Lady Gaga or
He's
Boy
looking
George?
good, man. He's looking good.
I know it's for a great cause, but I just don't have a good feeling about something there.
It's those Oakley glasses. I guarantee that's what it is. It's the white glasses.
Currently 8th on the speed chart, 4-time defending champion Jimmie Johnson back out on the racetrack. And Larry, once this team gets hot, you know, it was a strange thing to hear people say after the 4th championship. A lot of people, fans, and maybe some competitors as well, said, you know what, these 10 races, they favor Jimmie Johnson too much. Let's change the chase races. But you know what? All 43 cars got to go out and race the same races, and it's hard to find a bad track for Jimmie Johnson.
All I know is he's won 4 consecutive championships. He won 1 with the old car. He won 1 with a year that we had a mixture of cars. He won 1 with 10 drivers. He won 1 with 12 drivers. Change whatever you want.
I'm going to say, what else are you going to change?
Wendy, what would you change?
Oh, well, I don't want to make those calls. I'm just here to talk about what's going on with these race cars. And for Jimmie Johnson, it's the most smooth he's felt in this practice session. The balance was a little bit of the same, but he said it was the most consistent arc from center to exit that he's had all day long. He said he had a dime in the corner earlier in practice, but now he feels like it's a consistent arc, and that's helping him. He's glad the team got the car loose. As for Kevin Harvick, who's in the garage area making his mock qualifying runs already, let's give a synopsis of what's happened to him. He said the front needed to turn better early on in practice. They started to work on the rear of the race car. Can't get it to turn for Kevin Harvick. Finally, towards the end of practice, it turns a lot better, and it's really good, according to Kevin Harvick. He said he had to wait on the race car a little bit, but the car drove good, and that's the thing that you want to hear from a driver. He feels like they had gone a little bit too far earlier on their adjustments, so they're trying to zone back in for Kevin Harvick. Hermie?
Yeah, catching up with Elliott Sadler. The guys in the booth had some interesting comments about your choice of uniform this weekend, but it's all for a good cause. Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah, it's for a great cause, and I'm so proud of Stanley. This is our 3rd year now to have Susan G. Komen on the car. They've raised over $250,000 to go towards cure for cancer, and being our mom is a cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor, and it is October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They can make fun of pink, but I think I look good in pink. I think real men can wear pink, and it's for a great cause, and we're definitely going to have a lot of fun with it this weekend.
Well, how's your car running? Obviously, up and down the speed chart, sticker tires or new tires seem to be a big help here.
Sticker tires are definitely a big help here, so we just put our qualifying gear in, made a few more changes. Going to go ahead and make our final run. We got a good draw for qualifying, so definitely want to get the weekend off to a great start for Sunday, but I think the car looks good. I really appreciate Stanley letting us do this. They've been great partners to work with the last couple of years, and definitely do a lot of great stuff for charity. So it's my honor to drive the pink car this weekend.
Not sure who it was, but either Larry or Jeff referred to him as Lady Gaga. I'll let him determine that and investigate it and deal with it accordingly.
Hey, Hermie, I ain't got no problem. I'll man up and say I'm the one that said it, you know, so I'm just picking on him because, I mean, it does look good to see that car out there running and understanding the purpose and the premise for it is to bring the awareness that, you know, Susan G. Komen, as well as all the cancer research that's going on during, you know, all around the country, all around the world to try to help this situation.
I think it's the white glasses. That's what I'm not feeling. It's the
but
white glasses.
he grew a beard this morning to make sure everybody understood I'm still rough and tough.
Now, I found it interesting as we watched David Reagan, who's been actually pretty quick this entire practice, 8th quickest. Found it interesting. He said they're putting their qualifying gear in there. It's the same ratio they've been practicing. The lowest gear you can run here is a 400, but these guys, since it's not an impound race and they can change components after qualifying, it's just, it's built lighter. It's going to have less rotating weight, which obviously helps the horsepower on the straightaway.
Kurt Busch and Steve Addington obviously looking for some speed there. They're number 36 on the speed chart right now. And like you mentioned earlier, Larry, Kurt Busch has simply torn up the 1.5-mile tracks over the past couple of years. But this is not one of his better 1.5-mile tracks.
No, it's not. I mentioned earlier, 9 starts, only 2 top 10 finishes, and right now, even without what we feel like is a practice qualifying run, only 24th on the practice sheet right now.
And the thing is, right quick, is that the reason why everybody wants to qualify well, the last 3 races here at Kansas have been won and from a top 10 starting position, the lowest being in 2006 by Tony Stewart, 21st.
Now, JR, that's a nugget.
Paul Menard's on top of the speed chart, about 10 minutes left in this practice session. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from Kansas is brought to you by Sprint, proud sponsor of the chase for the NASCAR Sprint Cup, and by Arctic Cat. Get great deals at the Gone Wheelin' sales event. Arctic Cat, share our passion. We are winding down the first practice session and only practice session before qualifying for the Sprint Cup Series. Kyle Busch has now jumped up to 16th on the speed chart, and also his fellow chaser Kevin Harvick is leading the way in the 8th spot. And right now, Jamie McMurray is occupying the top spot on the chart, and this has been a little bit of a mystery so far with the 99 as to this practice session. But like everybody else who's a little bit further back in the chase, they've got to get going. Time is running out.
But yeah, right now with 10 minutes to go in this practice, our top 4 so far are non-chasers, which is basically McMurray, Menard, Logano, and Montoya.
And leading the way for the chasers is the number 17 of Matt Kenseth, and the 12th spot now is occupied by driver 99, Carl Edwards.
Now, we have 2 different scoring monitors, and I think you and I were looking at the same thing, JR. Actually, Jamie McMurray, Paul Menard, they have run exact the same time out to the thousandths. But, of course, McMurray would get the nod because he is higher in points. And right now, this guy here goes to 3rd quickest. So, Wendy, it looks like they're gaining on this 99 car.
They definitely have gained on the 99. Remember, earlier in practice, I said that the right front was undrivable, according to driver Carl Edwards. He said now it feels a lot more uniform. He had the same issue in 3 and 4, but just in the middle of the racetrack, though, in the middle of the turns of 3 and 4. Bob Osborne, his crew chief, said, we're okay. We just need to be a little bit quicker. And there you have it on this qualifying run. They found a little bit more speed. They do have sticker tires on that machine. So they're going to end this practice session a little bit more happier than they started it.
And if you look at the speed chart right now at the top, you have to say, hello, Newman.
Right up there.
How about his teammate, though, an owner?
Yeah, Tony Stewart right now in the 14 car is 10th quickest. The slowest of our chase guys is Kurt Busch in the 2 car, 27th right now in this practice session.
So we have had a lot of shuffling going on. Now, a 90-minute practice allows you to do a lot of stuff inside on the track and inside the garage area. But, man, we have had guys that were searching for speed, were dead slow, and now they're finding themselves near the top of the chart.
Well, 4 fresh sticker tires and tape on the nose will do wonders.
Makes you
for
Superman.
1 lap here. You'll get 2 laps, but I think for the most part, our top 35, when we have qualifying this afternoon, they will be one and done. That's where you're going to have maximum grip with those tires.
And, JR, what we'll get a chance to talk about as we watch the 56 car complete his qualifying effort. Martin Truex Jr., Keith still stays, he's 29th quickest, but a lot of it's going to have to do is how you come through 3 and 4 to take the green, the luck of the draw. There's going to be a lot of little extenuating circumstances. We've only got a second separation between the guy who's the fastest and our 39th fastest car, who happens to wind up being Mike Bliss, actually 40th right now. 40 cars are within a second of each other. So that's how tight this whole field is. And it's going to get tighter by the time we get ready to go qualifying later on this afternoon.
And it was very interesting to look just a moment ago, and it's still sitting there on the scoring monitor. 30.957, 30.957, both for Menard and McMurray, out to the 1,000.
And Jimmy Johnson in that 48 car, he just jumps up to 2nd quickest on probably his last practice qualifying run. But, Jeff, you're right about turn 3 and 4, because the run before Johnson made this one, you and I were watching him come through 3 and 4 to take the green. Car wiggled bad off 4, and he really didn't cut that fast of a lap.
No, he didn't, because, I mean, you just kill yourself as far as that one important lap, which is the first one. You don't get through 3 and 4, JR, you really give up. I mean, when we're talking about giving up a couple of tenths, it really shows up, you know, as far as that lap's concerned.
And we also find ourselves not referring too much to the weather or to the luck of the draw out here on this track, because we're probably going to have pretty consistent temperatures throughout the afternoon. It's probably not going to heat up that much, and it might not make that much of a difference.
I think it will. I'm just going to be old school. I always want to go out last. I mean, if I can get that late draw, it usually, if there's anything to be found in the racetrack, you're going to find it there. We take a look right here at Matt Kenseth. He's shown a lot of speed all day long during his practice. Currently 10th quickest in that 17.
We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we will wrap up this 90-minute practice session for the Sprint Cup Series. It's the only one before qualifying, before we set the field for race number 3 of the Chase. Only a couple moments left in Sprint Cup Series practice here at Kansas. Currently P1 on the speed chart is Juan Pablo Montoya, and a lot of drivers seem to be thrashing, trying to make it out on pit road to get a couple of laps in before the end of this practice. Let's go to Wendy.
The 48 car of Jimmy Johnson is done for this practice session, and I love the communication I heard on the radio at the very tail end. It was crew chief Chad Knaus saying, "Good job, guys. It's been a long day already," and the temps have actually heated up as we've gone on here in Kansas. Jimmy Johnson came back with his response, "We're really close, guys. Be proud of what you've done today. It's been good." So you could just hear the pep talks that they give each other, that they give to the team, and that's something that not every driver crew chief does throughout race practice sessions that we have here. But Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus feel like they've come a long way in this hour and a half. Herbie?
Yeah, Wendy, as you move a little bit further down into the garage where I'm standing behind Greg Biffle's car, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, 8th, 9th, 10th in points, you can just sense that these guys know this weekend is very, very important as far as hanging in, as far as the points, staying within reach of Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, and these guys up front. They're really thrashing, as you heard Larry Mack and the guys talking about it. Qualifying is very, very important. It sets the tone for the weekend, and when you feel like you've got to get a win or at least a top 5 just to stay in this ball game as far as the points, Friday is a big day for your team.
And Hermie, those drivers that you just mentioned, including Greg Biffle, are all past winners here at this track.
And just looking as we have right at about a minute left in this practice session, of our top 5, 4 are non-chasers. Our fastest go-home car right now is Bobby Labonte in the 09 car. The guys that are in trouble, remember 3 cars are going to go home. This is practice, not qualifying. But right now, it would be Jason Leffler in the 66, Mike Bliss in the 55, and Patrick Compantier in the 26 car. That's the 3 slowest of the go-homers.
45 cars out for 43 positions for the Sprint Cup Series. Different story in the Nationwide Series. And as we mentioned before, we got you covered all day long on speed here from Kansas. You can keep it right here on Speed. Or you know what? The best advice we can give you is to jump in your car or even jump on an airplane and come out here because it is beautiful out here.
Our biggest challenge during Nationwide Series practice will be explaining who's in what car this week and who bought what race team.
Yes,
They've been a little busy
It'll
over
definitely
there.
be exciting. We take a look here at the 14 guys. He just completed his mock qualifying attempt, his final run of this practice session. We see the red and black, and for Tony Stewart, moved him up to 12th quickest.
It is over with Juan Pablo Montoya being on top of the heap. Ryan Newman second, and Jimmy Johnson, the fastest of the chasers, has his 48 car 3rd fastest on the speed chart. And we heard Wendy say a moment ago that they feel proud of what they did on the track. And they should, because he's the fastest of the chasers. Carl Edwards made a big jump up, guys, from where he started.
And look at Jeff Gordon, the 24 car. He was up in the top 5, top 10 for 3/4 of this practice session. Ends up 18th quickest when it's all said and done.
Kyle Busch is the one I'm looking at right now because, again, he normally is fast when it comes time for qualifying, so he needs to find some speed.
Let's now send it back to our Charlotte studios at Speed for NASCAR Live with Randy Pemberton and Ray Dunlap. Take it away, guys.